right, today going to be talking about Child of a Mad God, The Coven Book 1 by R.A. Salvatore. So, before I begin, R.A. Salvatore was kind of like one of the first fantasy writers I started reading. Well, not the first, but one of the more YA adult fantasy authors I started reading when I was younger, about middle school age, probably a little older. I mean, I read Harry Potter, other stuff like that. So he holds kind of a fond place in my heart a little bit. But we're still going to talk and critique and try to be as unbiased as possible. Just letting you guys know that ahead of time. So, this book takes place in the same world as his Demon War saga. It is about... He does this in a lot of books with his characters where he has a multitude of a cast that there are main characters, but there also are kind of like multiple main characters where we kind of focus around a lot, and the events start bleeding together. I would say that the main character is a young girl that's born into this mountain tribe, who they have, like, you know, they're raiders and hunters, and they have magical capabilities. In this world specifically, magic is used within gemstones. So, like, there's certain gemstones in the world that contain, like, certain magics, and generally, like, I think rubies all do, like, have like fireball type effects where they kind of release fire and flames around a person. So the same gemstone always does the same type of thing. There's different power levels and people who can use magic and people who can't. We also have another couple characters. The other main one is like a trader that trades with the lake villages that are kind of down the mountain and get raided by these. Overall, kitty cat. Overall, I think he does a really good job with bouncing between a bunch of different characters like this. There's there's more characters he bounces between to get perspectives, but the reason he does it is generally to give us information. So, like, the reason that we have the trader and the young girl that's in the tribe is we get both perspectives from inside the tribe and outside the tribe, and kind of the good and like how they perceive themselves versus how they are perceived, which I think is a really good way to, like, work with distinct cultures that are clashing against each other, which this book does. And that's kind of what this first book deals a lot with. I mean, it's very much like her story and her finding her place. But it also deals with, like, a lot of that cultural clash between the two. So, RA has a specific fight style writing. It's really detailed. Usually it's pretty precise how he writes things. He does think through, like, how the character, if they fall, but, like, how they fall and then what they do from that position. So it's very, like, specific and like very motion driven. I think this is a small critique of that style. I personally like it. I think it keeps fights kind of interesting, because I know there are plenty of writers who struggle with writing good fight scenes, or, like, intense ones that have some stakes in them. Sometimes they can be a little hard to follow, so good and bad there. I think he does a super good job of... So, the not specific... I mean, I brought this up with the fights a little bit, but with even just, like, talking scenes or, like, small small events throughout the book. I think he does a really good job in this book of making those feel like they have stakes to them, like meaningful stakes to the characters, not just like, you know, not just like, oh, okay, they're doing this because, you know, this is what they've got to do. No, there's like consequences and things that happen because of the actions they take in, you know, the scene here versus the scene here. So that carries a lot, and I think he does a really good job with that. And I think that's because, just judging from the writing, I think he does a good job planning, which is going to lead me to my next point, which is great world building. I think that, I mean, this is the second series within this world. So it seems like a lot of the front work was already kind of done. I actually think I'm going to reread the Demon War saga. Well, re-listen to the Demon War saga. And probably review that as well, because this takes place after that. And I haven't listened to it for a while, so I kind of want to go through it again and kind of help fill in some gaps here and there too. But I kind of know most of the back references. It's not like super crucial you read the Demon War saga before this. This is like a separate story, but there are like things that tie between the two, like events that happen in those books that are causes for what's happening in this story. One other thing that RA does that I think is very good, and this is just a general thing in his writing, but specifically in this book too, is the use of time. So time, you know, a lot of times writers will write in like one specific time in a book. Like it'll be like within 6 months of a character's life, or, you know, however long the book takes place for. The way I see it, and the way I've always kind of explained to myself and to others, is that he writes in like almost like you're reading a D&D backstory. You get points, so like it's told for a while. So like I think the book starts when the young witch is like 4, I want to say 3 or 4, and you get her story told there along with the other characters' stories, so what they're doing in that time. And the events are important, but then he'll, to age characters up and stuff like that, because like he doesn't want her to be 4 for the entire book, he wants her to be older, he'll jump. So then he'll jump to when she's like a teenager, and then he jumps to when she's a little bit older after that. Like there's these time jumps, and they take place in different parts of the book, and I think they're done in a way that feels good, because sometimes those time jumps can like reset so many things, but it doesn't really, you kind of know already what's going to happen. So by jumping over those events, you kind of fill in like a little bit here and there, the details backfill in for the reader, but you've done enough setup and prep work that the reader kind of understands what's going to happen already. So it's kind of like you just be telling them stuff they're already kind of figuring, and you're trying to get to the more juicy events that are like the conclusion and stuff like that. And I think that's really interesting. I don't see that a lot in writing, and especially in just in books in general. Let's go to a few critiques now. I talked about a lot of positives. I'm basically doing an almost non-spoiler review for this because I've read a lot of his work. And if you like his stuff, you'll like this. So, and there's not a whole lot, I don't feel like there's a whole lot that spoilers are really going to help me explain, because honestly, it's just a solid book. But there are a few things that, critiques I want to talk about. So he does a good job of giving us the perspective that we're in, and he makes it very easy to follow whose head we're in. However, there are a lot of times we jump into side characters' heads, and like sometimes that's good. We need the context of what this character is thinking. Sometimes I don't think we do. I mean, I can't even count. I can't even say how many times we jump into the heads of side characters within this book. It's with like 10, probably 10 different side characters, close to. There are some good ones, I will say. There are some ones that I'm like, not sure we needed that, but I feel like he just kind of wanted to write a scene there, and it doesn't. The scenes that I'm complaining about don't necessarily feel useless, but I think we would have been okay if we didn't get them too. So it's kind of give or take. I think it just slows down the pacing a little bit and probably would have made the book a little faster. I'm going to just give this straight up. There is sexual assault in this book. It's that can be a big, turn off for some people. I get that. I understand. And I know that can be triggering. I'm not sure. I'm not, I'm probably not the right person to necessarily talk about it. I just want to make sure that you, if you're going to read this, are aware that that is in there. Not saying that it's, with the way the culture is written and the way it's set up, it's not. There are times where like that happens and it's like, why would you put this in? I think that this one is like, just with the way that, because this is a fantasy world, he tries to put it more in that era, how these peoples and cultures would think. So it's not surprising that it happens, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything he could, like, he kind of set himself up to have that happen. So I just want that warning to be out there for people. I will say too that this book could almost feel like a prequel story. I mean, the conclusion and everything, like, is, it is a story on its own. But as I kind of said before, it's almost like reading a D&D character's background, like backstory of what happened. And he does this a lot. This is not uncommon for him. I don't think that it's necessarily bad. It's just a bit slower at the start. There's lots of time setting up and building these characters and building these events and going from place to place and traveling. There's not a lot of travel scenes that I think are slow. I think most of the scenes in the book are well paced, but there is, it can drag, I know, for some people. I do feel like he has a plan for this entire series, and because there's definitely like setups for books that are coming. So I'm interested to see where this goes as a series. But I have no idea what that is yet. I've just started book 2, so I'm interested to see where it goes. But there's definitely like, it's gonna be a little bit of like this very interconnected, almost like pieces of a story rather than just, a full like epic conclusion at the end of the book. There is some good stuff still. I think if you've read his other books, you'll enjoy this book. I mean, his style is, especially if you read the Demon War saga and you like that, then you'll like this. His style is, I don't think, has really changed, and I think that can be good because then people know kind of what they're getting into. I think that his plotting, I mean, again, we'll see where this goes after this, but I think his plotting has gotten better with time, and I mean, he has a lot of books published, so Um, I would also say, so if you haven't read his stuff, if you like D&D esque stories, if you're into that scene as I am, and uh, you kind of like those. I mean, it's not D&D by all means. It's not Forgotten Realms. I don't know if it's connected to another world that I'm not aware of, but it's not Forgotten Realms. I know that for a fact. It's a different world with the gemstone magic and stuff like that. But again, I think it's pretty good. I don't think it's anything like that's like this is the be all end all of a book, but it's a solid book. I definitely give it a read if you're interested in it. Lots of good stuff, some drawbacks, but I'm interested to know what other people think because I haven't really talked to anyone about this yet. So we'll see. Maybe you guys can post down in the comments if you've read it, what you think about it. If you haven't read it, but you're gonna read it, that'd be awesome. Be sure to leave a like on the video. It's always super helpful for the channel, and it helps us grow and get found. And then, of course, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe, especially if you like my videos. I really appreciate it, and we're small, but I hope we can keep growing and keep kind of building a community around talking about books, especially fantasy books. So I think that's going to be it for me for this one, guys, and I will talk to you later.